Hello, class. This is Mrs. Smith again, and this is a continuation of our Beowulf lecture, our PowerPoint presentation. So this is instruction set 2. Remember to continue taking notes. You will have a SWIC again after we're done with this PowerPoint presentation. So we left off right before we were going to talk about the setting. Where does Beowulf take place? Well, I have two maps here for you. One is a little bit older, and one kind of breaks down some color coding just so you can see it a little bit better. But we're in Scandinavia during this time period. And so that includes Norway, Sweden, Denmark. So that's what you're looking at. You know, right in about here would be Denmark, Sweden, Norway. Same thing here, Denmark, Sweden, Norway. And our story takes place right here where the Danes live in Herot, which might be kind of close to Copenhagen, Denmark, as we know it today, I guess. But no one knows for sure. Of course, this is a fictional area. But our hero, Beowulf, comes from Geatland and travels across this channel here in order to help King Hrothgar in Herot save his kingdom. So if you look at this color-coded map here a little bit, you can see where Geatland is specifically and where the Danes lived. And of course, Herot would be right up here near this watery area. And most likely Beowulf traveled this direction right in here. So that kind of gives you a scope of where we are in the world, globally speaking. Now keep in mind, if you've studied your history, eventually Anglo-Saxons invade, move over to Britain. And that's why so much of this story continues our traditional literary development in Great Britain. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So let's talk a little bit about the language. I'm going to move myself down here. Let's talk a little bit about the language. If you have your book, you will notice that you have a, let's see here. You have what's called a parallel text or a bilingual edition of your book. So when you open it up, I'm just going to go ahead and open up to page 92. If you look at page 92, you will probably have a little bit of trouble reading it because it's in Old English. So you will notice that your book is parallel text or bilingual edition, meaning that the left side is in the original language and the right side is the translation, thanks to Seamus Heaney, this man right here, circa the year 2000. So if I look at page 92, a little bit difficulty reading it, but if I look at page 93, I don't have any problem at all. Beowulf was quickly brought to the chamber. The winner of fights, the arch-warrior, came first footing in with his fellow troops to where the king in his wisdom waited. You can almost hear the alliteration. You can hear the rhythm. We'll talk more about that later. So Old English was the language spoken by the Anglo-Saxons during this time period. The English we know today is a combination of multiple languages that evolved over time, such as, but not limited to, French, German, Danish, Italian, Latin, Greek. The list goes on. The English language is definitely a conglomerate. So we're going to go on to the next slide where you're going to watch a video that's going to introduce you to Seamus Heaney and his translation of Beowulf.
With writing, Old English stole a march on other languages spoken in Europe at the time. Prayers were recorded and books of the Bible translated. The laws of the land were written down, and the language soon became capable of recording and expressing an increasingly wide and subtle range of human experience. And in the right hands, Old English was now powerful and supple enough to take you to imaginary worlds, fire the blood, be poetry.
What? We gardena in Jardavum, Theod Kuninga from Gefrunon.
So, the spear days and days gone by, and the kings who ruled them had courage and greatness. We have heard of those princes' heroic campaigns.
No one knows who composed the epic Beowulf sometime between the mid-7th and end of the 10th century. It's the first great poem in the English language, the beginning of a glorious tradition which will lead to Chaucer, Shakespeare, and beyond. The poem celebrates the glory days of the Germanic tribes, epitomized in the heroic warrior who gives the poem its name. The power of the language can be heard in this passage, which introduces Beowulf's archenemy, the monster Grendel.
The comb of Mora, under Misleodum, Grendel Gongan, Godas
In off the moors, down through the mist bands, God-cursed Grendel came greedily loping.
Muntese Manskaffer,
The bane of the race of men roamed forth, hunting for a prey in the high hall.
Comb that Urekada, Rink
Spurned and joyless, he journeyed on ahead and arrived at the bawn.
Onbred the Biala Hudig, the Higaborgan was.
Then his rage boiled over. He ripped open the mouth of the building, maddening for blood. He grabbed and mauled a man on his bench, bit into his bone lappings, bolted down his blood, and gorged on him in lumps, leaving the body utterly lifeless, eaten up hand and foot.
What does that tell us about English at that time, Seamus? What sort of language was it when you came to it? Do you think this is a fully developed poetic language?
It's certainly a fully developed poetic language. It's capable of great elaboration. But what struck me generally about Old English from the moment I read the bits of the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle right through to Beowulf is it's terrific for telling what happened. It's a wonderful sense of the indicative mood all through it. It's terrific for action, terrific for description. There's a wonderful forthright capacity to make up extra language in Anglo-Saxon. The words are very clear and direct. Bone and house, for example. Bone house, there you have the house for the body, a word for the body. Beautiful words for instruments. The harp is called gleo beam, the glee beam, the happy wood, or else the joy wood, I think so, goman wudu. Swords or shields. The shield is the war board, weed board. That is a specific poetic energy that's in the language. The ability to make compounds, which is still in German, I guess, that gives it a great beauty.
How extensive is the vocabulary?
I think there are 40,000 words recorded in Beowulf. But a lot of the words repeat themselves probably this is in poetry more than in the prose. If we heard an Anglo-Saxon speaker speaking under his roof to his companion, we'd probably hear a quicker, a different, less elaborate language from Beowulf.
Would you say it is very clearly written to be read aloud?
It's certainly written to be read aloud. The question that agitates some scholars is whether it was written, But I think the general consensus now is that by the time you get to Beowulf, you have a writer dealing with a traditional oral language.
What? We gardena in Yardawum, Theod Kuninga from Gefrunon, Hutha Afelingus, Ellen Fremedon.
Certainly you open the book, what we gardena and Yardagmet asks to be uttered, and there are many speeches in it. And it comes off the tongue with terrific directness, I think.
Okay, so we will go ahead and stop instruction set 2 here. Go on to your SWIC. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit and hearing Seamus Haney actually talk about Beowulf. And we'll join back up for instruction set 3 after your SWIC.